And Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is preparing to face tough question in today's debate on how he would approach China if he wins the White House in November. His team is privately acknowledging that they expect the issue to be focused during the first debate in Cleveland, Ohio. Over the past week, Biden advisors have honed in on questions about the world's second largest economy, anticipating attacks from President Donald Trump on the former vice president's record of dealing with Beijing. If he beats up Donald Trump, Biden will need to decide whether to scrap, keep or escalate the billions of tariff levied against China's import, and whether to stick to or renegotiate the partial trade deal Trump signed in January.
Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's campaign advisors say they would prioritize domestic issues like investing in research and development and U.S. manufacturing to compete with Beijing from a position of strength and deal with international matters like trade later. But the multifaceted rivalry with China will be difficult to ignore, and senior policy advisors including long-term Biden hand Jake Sullivan and former Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken have already publicly conceded as much. China possesses a growing challenge. It's arguably the biggest challenge we face from another nation state, Blinken said last week at an event hosted by U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I don't think the question is who's tough and who's weak on China. The question is who has the most effective strategy to protect and advance our security, our prosperity, our values. On the campaign trail to date, Biden has offered little detail on how he would deal with China's economic ascent, perhaps to maintain maximum flexibility should he win the election. In some instances, he may have had a hard time undoing existing policy. Both parties in Congress have overwhelmingly been in favor of tougher actions against Beijing on tech, human rights and trade issues. Trump has touted his record on China's frequently, boasting he's the toughest president and the first to take on the Asian giant. The president's campaign has produced multiple TV ads focusing on Biden's past comment that China's rise was good for the US. By comparison, Biden's ad have criticized Trump for downplaying the threat of the virus as it spreads in China and for policies that allow the Chinese nation to grow stronger. Biden said he would heavily invest in American R&D to counter China's technological innovation and acknowledge that certain Chinese companies pose a national security risk to the US. As the president, he would have to decide whether to continue the Trump administration's aggressive campaign against Chinese tech firms and inhibiting American companies from supplying them. The Trump administration this month cited national security when it announced a ban on China's WeChat and TikTok from the US app stores. A federal judge this week temporarily blocked the White House ban on TikTok, but the Commerce Department vowed to defend the underlying executive order from the legal challenges. Separately, to avoid a ban, TikTok parent ByteDance is negotiating with Oracle Corporation and the US government to take a stake in the Chinese company. Biden will also have to determine if his administration continues the sanctions imposed on Chinese officials for their crackdown on human rights in Hong Kong and the western region of Xinjiang, and possibly expand those sanctions further. Bureau Report.